What was the incident at your high school? When I was a sophomore, it was known around campus that a specific set of lockers that was between the campus and football field was off limits, because over summer break some kids blew the door off a locker with a dry ice bomb in a Propel bottle, shrapnel. 2 years into my relationship with my, now, husband, he starts telling a very familiar story, and I realized he was the fabled dry ice bomber my school had been talking about for the past 7 years. Someone drew a 25-foot dick and balls on 2 of the bathroom walls, jizzing across the remaining 2 walls. It was found first thing on a Monday morning and was extremely detailed. Someone spent hours on this, meaning they snuck into the school over the weekend for their art project. I was at my grad ceremony and this one guy, while walking the stage, pulled his pants down and mooned everyone. Not exactly sure what happened to him, but I heard he got suspended and got his diploma taken away from him. Teacher, female, got fired and went to court for sending a nude to a student. Mol A. The thing was though, it was the student who took her phone, found the nude in her gallery, and then sent it to himself. His mom found out about it somehow. Somebody attempted to burn down the school but only half succeeded. They had to demolish the old part of the school, where the fire was started, and rebuild an entire new wing. Bright side was we got the first 25-meter pool in the county. In an effort to crack down on grinding at mixers and dances, the principal did a school-wide saw about it. Apparently a common excuse students gave to avoid getting in trouble for it was that, while they may have heard that grinding was against the rules, they didn't know what grinding meant. So he described it in detail. Then at the end of the saw, he said that any student who still did not understand could come down to his office where he would use dolls. He held them up so we could see, to demonstrate the prohibited behavior. Hundreds of students lined up outside his office. The hallway was utterly impassable for the rest of the day, and students refused to be shepherded to class by staff because the principal said he would show us how to grind. Teachers joined the line. His idea to fix this was to announce that he was canceling the in-office offer, and instead, we could attend an optional auditorium demonstration after school that day. The auditorium had never been more full. After-school groups postponed activities, even the teachers in charge of them just sort of got out of the way and let it happen. Kids called, texted their parents, and told them they had to attend and would need to be picked up later. Buses were delayed, screwing up the busing schedule. It was a train wreck. He did the demo. He got fired like almost immediately. We later found out that he was very unpopular among the staff at that school, and a lot of teachers sort of went out of their way to help the train wreck pile up as badly as possible. He really has no one to blame but himself though. In elementary, 3 sibling boys died with their dad in a plane crash, and their mom opened a children's center in their name with a game room, music studio, and a ceramic studio in their names. Jack, Will and Rob Center. Sad and wholesome. A few kids broke into the high school to steal test scores for the set, just like that stoner movie lol. They got caught and expelled. One was my friend's brother. A popular sophomore girl drowned during a party in her own hot tub huffing dust off because it replaced the oxygen in her body. I guess that pushed her under the surface and her parents found her when they came home the next morning. R.I.P. Tanil. When I was a freshman in high school, we went into lockdown for an active shooter. There were cop cars swarming the building and helicopters flying above the school. It was a whole ordeal, and every student and teacher were obviously scared. There was a rumor floating around that the shooter was in the science hallway, which was the hallway I was in at the time. Due to all the rumors circulating, one science teacher decided to make a Molotov cocktail to throw at the potential shooter, and another science teacher broke one of his golf clubs he had stashed away in half for self-defense. It turned out the shooters were people with paintball guns, and both of these science teachers were fired the next day. It was always talked about the remaining years I spent at the high school about how terribly unfair it was for firing teachers that were in theory trying to defend their students from a potential shooter. Someone did a shit on the seat of a toilet, and few guys got a brush and brushed it out into corridor. Headmaster came along and thought it was a fake joke dirt and picked it up. Every boy aged 16, and it was called to an assembly where the headmaster said, "Today I picked up human excrement with my bare hand." A few boys couldn't handle it and burst out laughing. They never found the phantom shitter. This was about a year or two after I graduated, but the cool teacher got busted for having sexual relationships with two of his 16-year-old students. At least one of the girls was a player on the school softball team, which he coached. He was married with two small children at home, and his wife gave him the boot after that, as did the State Board of Education. I don't remember if he served any time in jail, but he did have to register as a sex offender and will never be allowed to teach again. I think he's a real estate agent now. This was one of the lighter the incidents at my school. Inspired by the movie The Basketball Diaries, the center of our basketball team made it a habit to masturbate on the roof of the gym. Unfortunately for him, he got caught in a big way by some other students and a coach. Long story short, he was given the nickname Stroke, and the cheerleaders even made a special cheer just for him, that they'd break out when he got the ball. We had several, but my favorite is when a theater kid named Roger started selling homemade sandwiches at school. They were delicious and cheap and put the cafeteria food to absolute shame. His business was booming and it made the cafeteria ladies super angry. They took the issue to administration and Roger was banned from selling his sandwiches. Roger was determined to right this wrong and did it in the only way a theater kid knows how, by writing a one-act play with the cafeteria ladies as the antagonists and an underdog hero battling against them. The play was even better than his sandwiches and was a smash hit at school. He ended up taking it to area, and I believe he even made it to the state one-act play contest with it. He also continued to sell his sandwiches, but simply changed to an ordering system. You ordered a sandwich the day before and picked it up just off campus boundaries in the morning. Technically not a school issue anymore that way. Nowadays he lives in LA and works as a production assistant. I like to think that the lunch ladies fueled his career by giving him the ammo for his early success. The biggest incident that I was aware of at my school was when some guy was caught gurking off in the bathroom and someone filmed it. It's been a while, but I think the guy filming got either suspended or expelled. I didn't really ask around, but I would be shocked if they didn't get in trouble. As for the guy who was caught gurking it, he still stuck around, even though the whole school knew about what he did. My friend had a class with him, and from what he said, the guy seemed nice. Still got to wonder why he felt the urge to do that in the school bathroom, and why the other guy filmed it. I went to a small, public school in rural Australia. Obviously, there was your standard pregnancies, deaths and mayhem. But this one is always my favorite. There was a teacher in my high school who we all really disliked and we called Voldemort, due to the both physical and personality similarities. Dude wasn't a mass murderer or a racist, but he was still a total fucking asshole. I honestly can't even remember his real name. To everyone he was just Voldemort. He also really hated being called this, and gave anyone who called him this to his face automatic detention, including myself. In the class below me, I was in year 8 at the time, so year 7s, had PE with Voldemort. This girl Chloe had just been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and was low, so she had a can of Coke with her. She was quiet, and pretty well behaved. She started dating the class bad boy, so to speak, called Otis, who is still a friend to this day. Anyways, Voldemort came up to her and demanded why she was drinking something sugary during class, and in the gym, she explained to him her condition and why she needed it, and was confused because every single teacher had been informed. Voldemort said he'd occurred, but he didn't believe it, and took away her Coke. Well, her boyfriend didn't like that, and asked him what the fuck he was doing. It then devolved into a shouting match between the two of them in front of the entire class, whilst she's starting to get pretty unwell. There's multiple accounts of what Voldemort's breaking point was. According to Otis himself, it was when he told him to get fucked and also get a nose job. They were in the gym doing hockey that day, and Voldemort ended up chasing Otis, a 13-year-old, around the gym with a fucking hockey stick, trying to hit him. This is again, in front of the entire class. And phones have just become a thing, so of course, every single student filmed it on their shit flip phones. Of course, during this, chill faints. All the screaming attracts the principal, who walks in on a teacher literally chasing around and trying to kill a student, whilst another is unconscious. Suffice to say, he was fired that very same day. All the phones were confiscated so the teachers could delete the footage. Chloe was fine, and Otis became an outright legend for finally getting Voldemort to expose himself as the utter asshole that he truly was. This might be a winner. A 14-year-old girl knocked on the door to interrupt a pregnant teacher in the middle of a class lesson and proceeds to wail on her skull with a hammer. After a few hits, one of my friends, 16-year-old Malay, grabbed the 14-year-old girl by the back of the shirt and swung her full force into a cinder block wall, and she just crumbled. I mean, he just destroyed her. Probably the best free hit you could hope for. Then plenty of students made sure she didn't still have her hammer or get up. My friend got proclaimed a hero on the news, and an upstate college gave him a full scholarship for a free ride at their school. The teacher had a fractured skull with bone chips they had to be removed from her brain. Her husband at the time, a teacher down the hall, had to be restrained by colleagues to keep him from murdering the 14-year-old. The teacher fully recovered and gave birth to a healthy boy, and I just looked her up on Facebook while thinking about this, and her son just graduated college last year. The motive for the attack. The teacher was calling the girl's parents for academic performance and truancy. The parents said if she kept getting in trouble, she wouldn't be able to go to the prom. She was asked by a senior. The teacher called and she got in trouble. She came into school the next day with a hammer and sock full of D batteries and told her friends she was going to kill that teacher. They told her that she was crazy, and she just walked away and said something like, "You think I'm just talking shit? You'll see." I remember a year later, a friend of the girl came up to a group of us in art class with a petition to get her friend released from juvie, and I tore her a new asshole very loudly, basically saying that was lucky she wasn't in prison for decades and that she should stop walking around getting people to support that monster. The infamous mud trail incident. Lol. When I was in 6th grade, I was in a small school about 200 students big. It was very small as we only had 2 bathrooms. One west, one east. Anyways, early morning, the east bathroom got absolutely trashed one day. Someone didn't quite make it to the toilet. They left the login but created a mud trail from the entrance to the toilet. This sparked a school-wide manhunt as students wanted to know who the mud trail criminal was. Students refused to listen to teacher as everybody claimed the room smelled like shit and they couldn't focus. Employees had their own bathroom inside the teacher's lounge, so it was only students that could have been the culprit. The teachers were forced to pair up students to go inside the bathroom and check each other's ass to see if they were the mud trail criminal. Every class was ushered out of their room in pairs. Male equals female. Would enter the bathroom, check if the undies are clean, and report back to the teacher. It was going effectively as every student wanted to clear their name, but before lunch came, the principal stopped the investigation and called a school-wide meeting. The principal told us the student has come forward secretly and admitted to the incident. Everybody would be going home for the day to keep the student anonymous as they needed to change their underwear, and if only they went home, it would raise suspicion. Never really discovered who the mud trail criminal was, but I was pretty sure it was one of my friends, as they were just sweating throughout the whole day. Either he was the criminal or there was something in his ass he didn't want us to know. Edit. So people are calling this illegal abuse wrong. Yep. I agree. I live in Southeast Asia where discipline through any means was considered acceptable. My teachers were allowed to hit us when we misbehaved, so checking each other's undies wasn't even a big deal for us. I'm not saying all Asian schools were like this back then, but I guarantee that a lot of Asian people grew up with stories that could be considered child abuse.